Hello. Today I'm going to be talking to you about understanding leadership styles. How you choose to lead can have a significant impact not only on your company's culture and its identity, but also on team and organizational performance. There are many different leadership approaches out there. Some people take a hands-on approach, while others prefer to take more control. It can sometimes be very difficult to know which leadership style will best suit your team, your organization, or even a particular situation that you may find yourself in. In this session, I will examine 5 general styles of leadership that you'll likely encounter in the workplace and discuss the benefits and the disadvantages of each. These are bureaucratic leadership, transactional leadership, servant leadership, charismatic leadership, and transformational leadership. A good understanding of leadership styles can help you to adapt your way of working to your manager's preferred style, allowing you to work more effectively with them. Leadership styles can also help you to become a more effective person yourself, especially if you are able to adapt your leadership style to suit the people who you manage, your organization's culture, or changes in your own job. In this session, you'll learn how to assess the strengths and weaknesses of your natural leadership approach, how to identify different leadership styles, decide which style is most appropriate for your workplace, and identify any changes that you may need to make to lead more successfully. So here in this section, general leadership styles, I'll explore the general leadership styles that most people tend to use. These are bureaucratic leadership, transactional leadership, servant leadership, charismatic leadership, and transformational leadership. It is worth noting, however, that many managers use a mixture of different styles. In fact, most influential people rarely use just one. The best leaders are those who are able to adapt their style to suit particular circumstances, particular organizations, and particular teams. So bureaucratic leaders, they follow rules and regulations rigorously and ensure that their people follow procedures precisely. They are often highly organized and enjoy structure, although this can mean that they find it hard to think outside the box when unexpected situations arise. Some characteristics you'll find in people who tend to be bureaucratic or things like regularly checking your work. They can be very demanding to work for, but can maintain a reputation of excellent results. People can find it difficult to meet their standards and can be reluctant to approach them when there is a problem. Their teams can be riddled with high staff turnover and absenteeism. They're not very good at taking bad news or unpredictable situations. They can tend to go into a panic and would tend to rely on higher management to resolve such situations. Bureaucratic leadership is most suited to managing organizations that rely heavily on procedures, such as companies that use heavy machinery or toxic substances, for teams that need to carry out routine tasks regularly, and for highly structured organizations that have multiple tiers of management. And bureaucratic leadership is most likely unsuitable for managing organizations where creativity is important. For instance, new businesses. It is least suited for people who are free thinkers and enjoy thinking outside the box, and also least suited for organizations that are people oriented. This style of leadership, transactional leadership, assumes that people are motivated by reward and punishment. It also assumes that the organization works best when it has a clear chain of command. If you work in an organization that uses transactional leadership style, then you will likely be expected to hand all authority to your leader when you sign your job contract. This is more or less seen as part of the transaction. Your role is to do what your leader tells you to do. If you do this successfully, you will receive rewards and recognition. But if you fail, or if your work doesn't meet an agreed standard, the organization has the right to withhold certain bonuses or benefits to punish you and other team members. Transactional leadership boils down to reward. Meets the target and you'll get a bonus, raise or promotion. Or punishment, if you miss a target, then you'll get no more than your basic pay and you may even lose your job. So some characteristics of such a leader includes things like, being a hands-on manager, being committed to achieving goals effectively. They're usually very clear. There's very clear chain of command is usually established between them within the organization. Working procedures are usually clearly documented. The team usually knows what to do and how. Productivity is usually also very high. Some team members can feel stifled by the rigidity, as their creativity is usually not welcomed. Such staff will usually resign from their teams. Because of this atmosphere, if staff are asked to work with the manager to come up with a new idea or suggestion, they can't seem to think or be creative anymore, or maybe they're just afraid, or they become accustomed to the structure. Teams can become demoralized and there is a reluctance to try new things, usually because they know that they will be punished if they ever make a mistake. Transactional leadership is most suited to managing routine and straightforward tasks. Inexperienced teams, people who are ambitious or motivated by external rewards such as compensation, competitive sales environments, and production lines. And it is least suited to managing knowledge-based or creative work, attracting and retaining highly skilled staff, and least suited again to skilled roles requiring flexibility. The next leadership style that we'll look at is servant leadership. A servant leader is someone who focuses on other people's needs first before considering their own. They listen and empathize with their team members and are able to look at situations from teammates' perspectives. They support their subordinates' professional and personal goals and involve them in decisions where appropriate. Servant leadership often helps to build strong team relationships and can lead to higher engagement, morale, and trust. Servant leadership can also help to encourage creativity and innovation. However, this type of leadership is often thought of as a long-term strategy, as it takes time to build up trust and loyalty. Some critics believe that people who practice servant leadership can find themselves left behind by other leaders in the organization, particularly in competitive situations. Characteristics of a servant leader: they're always there for the team, they regularly check in with their people. They get the team involved in decision making and problem resolution. Decisions are made in teams' best interests always. The democratic decision making process can take a while, we notice, with this kind of leader. Deadlines can sometimes suffer as a result of this. However, They are usually a successful and long-standing team. There's usually low staff turnover, high productivity, and high engagement levels. Servant leadership is best for managing companies that like to invest in their people and have a strong sense of community, highly skilled people who require flexibility, and creative teams where decisions are made by the team rather than by management. However, it is least suited to managing results-driven environments that require a high level of organization to survive, sales or production teams, for example. A crisis situation where quick decisions and fast action are needed. This would be least suited. And also least suited for organizations such as hospitals, where procedures and guidelines are intrinsic to success. So some characteristics now, 10 characteristics for you of a servant leader. Listening. You'll serve people better when you listen to them intently and make an effort to understand what they're saying. Empathy. Servant leaders are good at looking at situations from other people's point of view, and they value other people's perspectives and input. Healing. Good servant leaders will support their people emotional needs by ensuring that they have a healthy workplace and they are happy and engaged in their roles. Self-awareness, that ability to see how your actions and behavior impact those around you, is key to becoming a successful servant leader. Persuasion, servant leaders use persuasion rather than authority to encourage their people. Conceptualization, strong servant leaders make an effort to go beyond their and their team's objectives by encouraging them to think about the bigger picture. They focus on the organization's longer term goals. Foresight is another characteristic. Servant leaders can predict what's going to happen in the future by learning from their past experiences, identifying what's happening now, and understanding the consequences of their actions. Stewardship, another characteristic. Servant leaders always take responsibility for their team's actions and performance and are not afraid to be held accountable for them. Another characteristic, commitment to the growth of people. Servant leaders encourage their people to develop their skills, and they are committed to helping team members to achieve their career objectives. Building community. Servant leaders will strive to build a sense of community within their organization and encourage their people to interact with other teams across the company. Charismatic leadership is the next leadership style that we're going to look at. So charismatic leadership is similar to transformational leadership. Both types of leaders aim to get the best out of their people by inspiring and motivating them. However, while transformational leaders seek to transform their teams and organization, leaders that rely on charisma tend to focus more on themselves and their own ambitions and may not want to transform or change anything to achieve them. Charismatic leaders rely heavily on their charm and persuasion skills to inspire their team and get what they want. Usually they are very skilled communicators with excellent emotional intelligence. In other words, they can appeal to others. They can appeal to their emotions to get them on board because they can engage people easily. It makes them very popular and people tend to be devoted to them. However, their commitment to their own personal cause can lead them to have a bit of tunnel vision. It can make them arrogant and they can start to bend and break rules to achieve what they want. Some sample characteristics here. They're usually highly admired. Team will go out of their way, dropping their own tasks to help them. Subordinates are quick to please them. When they do, the leader is quick to shower them with praise. Sometimes they can only be in the company for a short time, but they can rise through the ranks quite quickly. They're highly valued within the organization, and they can forge new relationships quickly, both internally and externally. Charismatic leadership is best suited for managing organizations that require social change. For instance, a company that wants its brand to become more values-led, or that are strongly committed to a particular vision. Situations where morale is low and needs to be improved would be also good for a charismatic leader, and for startups that need to get off the ground. However, charismatic leadership styles are ill-suited to managing risk-averse organizations that like to follow strict rules and regulations, and those that have little room for innovation. Our next leadership style is transformational leadership. One of the most effective leadership styles is transformational leadership. Transformational leaderships have great emotional intelligence and inspire their people not with a carrot and stick, but with a shared vision of the future. Transformational leaders, they are active motivators. They will have excellent communication skills and are very self-aware, empathetic, and humble. They won't necessarily lead from the front, but instead they prefer to delegate responsibility among their team members. And while their enthusiasm is often infectious and team productivity and engagement high, they may need people on their team that can help them to look into the detail to ensure that the team's day-to-day goals are being achieved. Characteristics of such a leader: they're approachable, they have an open door policy, they consult individuals to check progress and make sure everyone is okay. They can be tough and demanding to work for. Enthusiasm and clear communication inspires the team. They work hard with high standards and expect the team to do the same. They set ambitious goals. They encourage the team to develop personally and professionally, and people come to them with ideas which they will normally help them to develop for the good of the business. Transformational leadership is most suited to managing businesses in rapidly changing industries, highly skilled and experienced teams, and inexperienced but ambitious individuals. It is, however, least suited to managing risk-averse organizations and people who are only motivated by immediate, tangible rewards. A transformational leader has 4 key qualities. Transformational leaders, they are first and foremost good role models for their teams. They show integrity and fairness and have a clear set of admirable values that underpin all of their work. This builds trust between them and their teams and gives their people, they lead a sense of pride in their work. The emphasis on admirable values is usually significant. Transformational leaders are great at motivating people. They do this in 3 main ways. 1, they have high standards and challenge their people to meet or exceed them. 2, they are unfailingly optimistic, but they're also realistic. And 3, they communicate their vision clearly. Transformational leaders will hire team members that are highly innovative and capable. They value creativity and actively encourage people to come up with fresh ideas. They take a big picture view and work hard to help their people to understand how they contribute to the organization's core mission and vision. Transformational leaders are committed to supporting their people's individual needs and meeting the concerns of everyone on their team. They mentor team members so that their knowledge and experience is passed on to those who need it. And they give people the tools that they need to become future leaders themselves. Now that we have explored the general leadership styles that you will most likely see in the workplace, it's important to take some time to identify the approach that best suits you. So in this section, we will look at how you can identify your natural leadership style and how you can adapt it to suit your people and your organization better. It's important to understand the style of leadership that you naturally prefer, as this will help you to identify and address your strengths and weaknesses. So grab a notepad and a pen, and I want you to think about how you lead your team by answering the following questions. Then I want you to review your answers and identify the leadership approach that you favor most. So number one, how do you motivate your people? Do you prefer to use monetary incentives, or do you try to inspire them by engaging with them and investing in them? Second question, do you trust your people to work independently and make decisions? Or do you make all the decisions and feel as though you need to check people's work to ensure that they have done it correctly? Number three, do you encourage your team members to be creative? Or do you prefer them to follow existing procedures and work on perfecting them? Fourth, if a team member is demotivated or upset, how do you deal with it? Do you ignore them and hope the problem resolves itself? Or do you talk to them privately and make an effort to understand why they are feeling that way? How do you deal? Fifth question, how do you deal with unexpected change? Do you panic and ask for help from senior management? Or do you take ownership of the situation and try to fix it with the resources that you have before taking it to your manager? Would you say that the values are important to you and underpin all of your work? Or do you think that values don't really come into it and that carrying out orders and meeting goals are more important? Do you think that poor performance should be punished so that it doesn't happen again? Or do you prefer to talk the problem through with the person so that they can learn from it? How would you help a new starter in your team? Do you let them discover the best way of working by themselves? Do you invite them to collaborate, with team members? Or do you sit down with them to explain your procedures and what you expect from them? In your opinion, what skills and attributes make a great leader? For example, is it things like integrity, the ability to lead by example, or strict control and order, or anything else that you can think of? And finally, thinking about the 5 general leadership styles that we've learned about in this session, which style do you think that you naturally favor? Is it bureaucratic, transactional, servant, charismatic, or transformational? I want you to be able to think about the people in your team. Think carefully about each person's preferred way of working. And I want you to write down the leadership style that you think would be most beneficial to them. Think about your own preferred leadership style. You can also write down the things that you could do to adapt your approach so that you can lead each person more effectively. Think about these situations I will call out, and I want you to write down the style of leadership that you think will be most suitable in each situation, and identify some things that you may need to do to adapt your style in the event of such a situation. Okay, so we're focusing on what is the most suitable leadership style and how can you adapt your approach to lead more effectively in this situation. All right, so the first situation, a crisis situation, for example, financial, there's some sort of uncertainty, there are some layoffs. What is the most suitable leadership style and how can you adapt your approach to lead more effectively in this situation? Another example of a situation, let's say you have a demotivated team. What is the most suitable leadership style and how can you adapt your approach to lead more effectively in this situation? Other examples, an underperforming team. In an instance where there's an organization turnaround, for example, when a new strategy is introduced, or when you have a new starter that has joined your team, or a new team altogether. So I would like to conclude, and I want you to remember that in order to lead effectively, it is vital that you have a good understanding of the different leadership styles that are most commonly used and the circumstances in which they are most effective. The leadership styles that you will most likely see in the workplace are bureaucratic leadership, transactional leadership, service leadership, charismatic leadership, and transformational leadership. Bureaucratic and transactional leadership styles tend to suit large, heavily structured organizations in which success relies on procedures and processes being carried out to exact standards, and staff are motivated by reward and punishment. In contrast, we have servant, charismatic, and transformational leaders. They seek to inspire and motivate their people by communicating well with them, entrusting them with greater responsibility, and supporting them personally and professionally. In business, transformational leadership is often the most effective way to get the best out of people, and it can help to build trust and loyalty across the organization. Most people will naturally favor one style or another. At the same time, different organizational cultures and commercial situations will likely demand different leadership styles. A highly experienced team, for instance, will likely benefit from a more hands-on style, such as bureaucratic leadership. A team of experts, on the other hand, will tend to prefer a style that allows them greater independence, creativity, and flexibility, such as transformational leadership. However, it's important to note that no one style necessarily fits all. The best leaders are those who can adapt their style to suit the needs of their organization, their team members, and the situation they are in. I have some references there for you. Thanks for listening so much, and why don't you go ahead and share this with someone you think will benefit.